preparing the live stream.
Ah, inviando un terzo, ok.
I'm seeing us on YouTube.
Okay, I think we're on, right? Now I do my share. Okay, so now we're here. Live stream is okay, right?
Yeah.
Good, awesome. So, welcome to the FIND seminar. My name is Adriana Maldonado Chaparro. I'm a professor at the Universidad del Rosario in Colombia, and I will be your host today. Before we get started, I would like to thank Robin Vijan for his awesome talk on the complexities of songs in this endemic shoal sky island bird. It was a really good talk and discussion. I couldn't attend myself. I was in the field, but I watched that after. And next speaker, it's Matthew Silk from University of Edinburgh. Matthew will be talking about demography and disease and how these two elements shape animal social network dynamics. We'll be looking forward to his talk. We'll be sending around the invitation as well. Just a couple reminders about our FIND structure seminar. We have around 15-minute seminar followed by a 60-minute discussion. And then just remember to type in the question mark. So I will call your name. And if you're a student, just make sure to add an S next to the question mark and we'll give you priority. This week, we have Eugenia Natoli. Eugenia got her PhD at University of Florence in Italy in 1993. Since then, she worked back in those days with social behavior in long-tail macaques, but she has always been working with cats during most of her career. Currently, she leads the research component on animal behavior in the Zbrosonal dog shelter, and I apologize for the pronunciation. And there, she tries to build a more, basically, the research component on the welfare and well-being of dogs, mostly. But her research aims to understand interspecific variation in social behavior and on how to use behavioral, physiological, and immunological indicators on well-being, specifically apply on dogs and cats. And she's currently working on social behavior of domestic cats that live in colonies in the urban environment around Rome. Also in sexual behavior on bulls, although I think she's not doing that anymore. And then in the welfare of dogs and cats and determining the personality of these dogs and reproductive strategies in felines. Well, Eugenia has been really productive. She has a lot of grants and has got a lot of funding research, but she has also published a lot of articles, over 100 of them in national and international peer review journals. And she has also been very active in scientific communication. She has published in popular magazines around 16 articles, and she has edited a book in bioethical aspects of dangerous dog management. And she has also participated in as a scientific consultant in 4 different films about cat behavior. These films have been produced by different TV companies like the BBC, probably one of the ones that we know the best. And so as you can see, Eugenia has sort of a very different careers from what we have had so far in the seminar, but still really, really active in research and very interesting in the sense of how she integrates both the well-being and also take advantage of the urban environment to learn more about cats. And so Her seminar title is Multiple Paternity as a Measure of an Ineffective Male Reproductive Strategy, the Case of Free-Ranging Unowned Urban Domestic Cats. Eugenia, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. And this mic is all yours. And now I will stop the share and you can share your screen.
Thank you, Adriana, for the very nice presentation. And thank you also for inviting me to this seminar, because it's really an honor for me to be here. And it's a pleasure to discuss the data and the results and all the research we did with several working groups. So thank you also to the organization, to Karsten, Eduardo, and Lauren for the fine seminars, the general organization of the seminars. So I will share the, of course, is, yes, fine seminars and this one. So, can you see it?
Not yet.
I said condividi.
Yeah, just stop the sharing and then share again. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
and condividi. Should be. It says that it is, no, you cannot?
I see your Explorer, but not the presentation. So open when you, as we did in the trial, you share the PPT. Yes, exactly, that one.
Okay.
Good, perfect.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Okay. Then today we will focus mainly on social behavioral and reproductive strategies of the unowned or non-owned urban free-ranging domestic cats. And as you know, they live everywhere on Earth, and the scientists investigated its origin. Among the most probable species were the European wildcat, the African wildcat, the sun cat, the jungle cat, and the black-footed cat. But the genetic, morphological, and immunological studies have shown that the domestic cat is descendant from the African wildcat. I have to do a premise that the European wildcat is more studied than the African wildcat. So also I was involved in some research on the European wildcats. So I will tell you when the data are related to the European wildcat, we know more about this species. The original distribution of the domesticated cat was the Fertile Crescent, and the actual distribution is, as we said, all over the world with some little exception. Thus, we have to keep in mind that all domestic cats originated from Southwest Asia and Egypt, and in theory, they can be considered alien species in the rest of the world. So if you look at the arrows, you see that the diffusion from the Fertile Crescent to the Old World occurred in different time, very different time. And it occurred mainly along land and sea trade routes, following the spread of the black rat and the house mouse in order to control the population of these pests. There was a time in which it was considered sensible to have cats on board, because think of the long trip that humans had to afford with a great amount of food for months, even years, and for example, the entire ship crew. So it was really important to have cat on board because such amount of food was a party for the rodent pest species. And then the cats with their hunting behavior were really precious. So we speak of synanthropic cat, and we define them, the domestic cats that live in the same environment as human beings. But this category has subcategories. The owned cats living exclusively at home, the unowned cats free-ranging that live in the urban environment, and usually they are organized in large social groups. And they are often defined urban feral cats, and I disagree with this definition. I will tell you why in a moment. One category that is intermediate between 1 and 2, it is very important in sanitary terms because they can serve as vectors between the cats that remain at home and the cats that live in the street, and both for diseases that can be diffused among cats, but also for some zoonosis. And the rural cats that live in the rural environment in small group. Sometimes these groups consists of one adult male, some adult females, and some juvenile male. And the feral cats, and these are true feral cats because they are domestic cats that after being domesticated went back to a feral situation. They are solitary and they live only on hunted prey. So you see that the trophic resources are completely different from the urban ones, and this is a very important difference that makes me disagree with the definition of urban feral cats. So we see that they live in the different, at the intraspecific level, in different environments with different organization. So in some environment they are social, and we asked why. And I'm not saying anything new, but many studies on different opportunistic species have shown that the most important environment variable in determining the density and spatial distribution of animal population is the quantity and distribution of trophic resources. And these, in turn, influence the spacing pattern, the social organization, and the mating system. But before going on with the urban cats, I want to spend some words on the cats that we studied in a sub-antarctic environment in the Kerguelen archipelago, the main island of the Kerguelen archipelago, where the environment is really harsh because the temperature is generally low and there is a very strong and often cold winds even during the summer. So you see that there is not a lot of vegetation, but there are a lot of protective species. And the cats has arrived because these are inhabited islands, but there are some scientific stations where humans remain for some months, and it occurred that they took with them some cats, just 2, in the 50s, and in 2000 there were already more than 10,000 cats. And what they eat? Unfortunately, they feed on small prey like seabirds and on some rabbits and rats that, of course, were also introduced by humans, or on carrion, because there are, for example, the penguins, and of course the cats are not able to kill a penguin, but they can eat on carrion. In the rural environment, the cats feed on small prey and on small supplement of food from humans. And in contrast, in the urban environment, there is really abundant food resources and clumped food resources that make the difference. So what are the consequences? As we said, there are consequences in the spacing pattern and, of course, in the density. What you see here is a large male territory that includes some small territories where there are females, and the density is about 250 cats per square kilometers. And this is a pattern that is common in many mammals, and the rural cats share with the wild cat, and in some sense also with the sub-antarctic cat, because the mating system is polygyny, and it is completely different from the situation that we found in the urban environment, where the density is much higher. And we observed the existence of a multi-male, multi-female group all together in a single territory, and the mating system is promiscuity. The density in a sub-Antarctic environment is really low, but just to give you some comparison, the European wildcat has a density that is even lower, because of course they have to feed on hunted prey, so they need big territories. And to give other possibility to compare the cats, we see that in the urban cats, definitely they have a very small home range, and there are different measures. It depends, of course, where the cats were studied. In the rural cat, feral cats, European wild cats, and African wild cats. And these densities are clear, and these measures of home range are clearly a consequences of the distribution and abundance of trophic resources. So if we go in detail to see what we know about the three different environments, we said that in the urban and rural environment, there is a coexistence of many males and many, sometimes related, sometimes not, females. And the territory is defended against intruding co-specifics. In the sub-Antarctic, there are 2 or 3 females in exclusive territories that are included within a large male's territory. And again, it is defended from intruding co-specifics. The social unit of the group in the urban and rural environments are kin-related females and their offspring. And we observed the friendly behavior among adult females and among adult males and females of the group. We observed also the cooperation among females in rearing offspring in the urban and rural environments. It was assessed also an individual recognition based on olfactory cues among members of the group, where the group exists, of course. Sometimes in the rural environment is just a family group. And just for the urban environment, we observed that there is no female mate choice. Different is the situation for the relationship among adult males, because there is a linear dominance hierarchy in the urban and rural environment. And of course, in the sub-Antarctic, they are solitary, so it has no sense to speak of a dominance hierarchy. And there is tolerance with moderate intraspecific aggressive behavior among adult males in the urban environment, whereas rural and sub-Antarctic environments, there is intolerance among neighboring resident adult males with a high level of intraspecific aggressive behavior. Concerning the infanticide, we never observed the infanticide in the urban environment. And also, it's not only that our working groups did not observe the infanticide, but in the urban environment, I have never heard about infanticide. But I have to underline that when I speak on infanticide, I refer to infanticide from strange adult males as a reproductive strategy. So don't think about infanticide from females or whatever, because they have different causal and functional reasons. In the rural, we did observe the infanticide from strange adult males as a reproductive strategy. So now I will show you a short video from the BBC film in which I try to explain better with the images what I mean with tolerance among adult males, because the adult males in an urban group show the ritual duels that are duels without physical contact, that of course have evolved to avoid the risk to be injured in a serious way. So there is not the physical contact that can injure one of the opponents or both the opponents, and that consists of threat the opponents, to threat the opponents, to shout, and this male, who is a tabby male, Damien, is fighting with the orange and white male, and the number 2 in the hierarchy, that is another cat, a black and white cat, listen to the shouts and decides to intervene. For just a second, he threats the tabby cat, but after that he shows just curiosity, and one cat just leaves, and the other one, the tabby one, tries to go on with the fight, but he loses the look. When the ritual duel finishes in the moment in which one of the two just don't look at the other. So unfortunately, I have not the audio of this video. They are fighting. They are shouting a lot. And they are very excited. And at one point, Vagabondo is the name, he decides to see what is happening. And as I said, for one moment, this moment, he's threatening. The white and orange just decides that it's better to go. The other one tries to resist, but in this moment, he lost. And very slowly, he goes away to avoid to trigger the chasing. So the question that we posed to ourselves was, what are the sexual strategies of the cats in the urban environment? We have a saying in the Sicilian dialect that preaches the donkey mates not because it is beautiful, but because it insists. And this is exactly true for the urban cats, because there are not sophisticated courtship behaviors or rituals. The male just follow the females, and the females are in estrus for a long period, 4 or 5 days, 24 hours a day, and they really run all over. So this is another short video in which you see how much the male risk in the urban environment, because they focus on the female oh, sorry. They focus on the female and they risk to be injured by calves. And after that, this is the typical situation in which one female runs and the males run after her 24 hours a day. So the typical paradigm, that is that the body size influences the dominance rank or the ownership where there is not a group, so the ownership of a territory, that in turn influences the higher reproductive success. At the beginning, we thought that probably worked also in this environment. Think that the domestic cat is a dimorphic species, and then the males are 20% heavier, on average, of course, 20% heavier of the females, and have the canines that are the 20% longer than canines of the females. And look at these two individuals. This is Bravehearted, who is the number one in this group, the alpha male, and he weighed 6 kilos. And this one is the tabby one, Damien, who weighed 4 kilos. So there is a difference of 2 kilos. It's true that Braveheart was older, but he had really the phenotypic characteristic of an alpha male, with the large cheeks, very heavy, but Damien had not such a characteristic, but he will reserve some surprise in terms of reproductive success. We will see. So what we noticed, and it was time in which we had not the possibility to do the genetical analysis of the individuals. So what we noticed was that the copulatory success did not correlate with the dominance rank assessed on agonistic behavior. So we looked only for the true mounts, because we have two kinds of mounts in the cats. The true mounts is with intromission, and it's very easy to distinguish it from the false mount, because when there is the intromission, and so the probability to fertilize the female becomes aggressive, shouts, and tries to attack the male. And then we saw that there was no correlation. So you see, GE, that was this individual, it's true that he was the first in the hierarchy and he had the highest number of true mounts. But it's true also that IE, that was this individual, was the second one, and he really had very few true mounts. And also you see that there was a very heavy interference during the mating behavior from other males. So there was something that was not working. It was clear, because if you invest in being a dominant male or a high-ranking male, of course you have to maintain the rank. So it is not possible that it doesn't come back in rewards in terms of siring kittens in genetic term. So we, at this point, we made two hypotheses. The first one was the existence of physiological mechanisms not detectable from a behavioral point of view that favor high-ranking males, because I said that the females were in estrus for 4 or 5 days on average, and think that the female cat is an induced ovulator. So she needs about 24 hours after the first mechanical stimulation to begin to ovulate. And the ovulation, all the eggs do not go down altogether, but little by little in different days. And also, the males need the capacitation. That means that the sperms, to become able to fertilize the eggs, need to stay about 24 hours in the genital tract of the females. So we thought maybe there is a game in terms of days or hours or whatever that can favor high-ranking males. The second hypothesis was that the quick change of the environment due to human influence has brought about that males still show competitive mechanisms that were functional in the original environment of adaptation, but not in the new context. Because, of course, when I say quick change of the environment, think that the real urbanization were the density because of the food provided by humans. So the real urbanization has occurred in terms of centuries that, of course, in biological terms are really a very short time. So when, thanks God, we succeeded in having the genetical analysis and results, we discovered that the second hypothesis was the right one, because when we compare the number of litters that had more than one father, in the rural environment were really few compared to the urban environment. We even had a litter with 5 kittens that had 5 different fathers. So it is clear that the quick change of the environment led the cats to behave, to do the best of a bad job in some sense. Look at these results. Here I have to introduce another variable, that is the synchrony or asynchrony of the females. Because in the years in which for climate reason or whatever, the females were asynchronous, and in 1999 they were quite asynchronous, the high-ranking male and the alpha male was a little more able to control the situation and to monopolize some female. Actually, it was not really, we will see, but you see that at least up to here, you have some order. I mean, the males are in dominant rank order and they actually sired the kittens in proportion. But Damien, the tabby one, actually he sired 8 kittens, more than Vagabondo, the black and white, that sired only 7 kittens. And also Braveheart, that definitely sired 13 kittens, did not succeed in monopolizing really the females. Because here you have the results in detail, and you see that just 2 females, Chicky and Valentina, that were very young. Actually, Chicky had a litter of 3 kittens that paradoxically were sired all 3 by an unknown male, that it's clear that did not belong to the group, because we analyzed genetically all males, females, and kittens of the population. So she went out of the territory eventually. And Valentina had 1 litter monopolized by Braveheart, 4 kittens. But if you see all the other, Mommy had 2 from Braveheart and 2 from Damien. Sphinge, 2 from Vagabondo, 1 from Damien, and so on. So no one male was able to monopolize the kittens. So this was really unexpected and really curious, but thinking about is clear, because of course when you have Braveheart and Vagabondo, 6 kilos and 5.5 kilos, very competitive, that are fighting, there are other 10 males able to exploit the situation and mate with the female. So this takes us to the infanticide phenomenon, because in the urban environment, we never observed infanticide, but we did observe infanticide in the rural environment, where the distribution in the spacing pattern was different. So it made more sense that there were some cases of infanticide. You see here that not the entire litter sometimes was killed, because there was a reaction from the females, from the adult male present in the territory, the resident male. But there was some cases. I will go back to the infanticide again in a moment. So the question at this point is, but are domestic cats really plastic from a behavioral point of view? In general, the behavioral plasticity of domestic cats in the literature is reported in terms of food opportunism, but it is not the only and most important, well, maybe it's the most important aspect, but it's not the only aspect of the social organization, because look at these results. We found constantly more than one father in 80% of litters in the urban environment, in 22% in the rural environment, and 0 in the sub-antarctic environment. What is the relationship between behavioral plasticity and natural selection? Behavioral plasticity allows individuals to respond to ecological pressures by modifying their interaction with new environmental conditions, like, for example, exploiting new food resources, without changing the genetic diversity of the population. So we can say, in some sense, that it slows down or even prevents the action of natural selection. However, as Zook and co-workers pointed out with their fantastic studies on a cricket and a fly, a parasite of the cricket, if behaviors associated with the threat function already exist, a new variant finds a ready foothold and selection can act accordingly. So let's examine cats' behavior that I have already described in both perspectives. We said already that in the new environment, competitive adult males adopt the same reproductive strategy as in the original adaptation environment, which is no longer functional. So we have in the rural, or where there is the big territory of the male, that includes the smaller territories of the females, we have this kind of situation where a male can try to afford the opponents, the intruders, one by one. Of course, this is not possible in the urban environment, and we assist at this kind of situation where the males are calmly waiting, and one after the other, more or less, all of them copulate with the female. So we have the absence of female mate choice, we said, in the urban environment, because thinking of the original pattern, spacing pattern, the females were not selected to exercise mating choice based on morphological or behavioral characteristic, because they didn't need it. Because, of course, their choice was before choosing the territory. I mean, they choose the territory, and then this male monopolized the females because they had already chosen to live in this male territory because of their resources were particularly good or whatever. And the tolerance of adult males or kittens already, again, they are not aggressive until the kittens reach the age of 1 year, more or less, before they disperse, because after that, the domestic cat are a female philopathic species. So until they have to disperse, there is a very high tolerance of adult males toward kittens because they have been selected to do that because there is a high probability that they sired them. And of course, this goes for the infanticide in functional term, but also, of course, in causal term, because the promiscuity brings about the fact that the copulatory behavior stops the tendency to commit infanticide. This has been very well studied in many mammal species. And the cooperation in offspring among females. This is another point that in general is taken to support the idea that the domestic cat is a social species. But I see it in the other way around, because the adult females have not been selected to discriminate their own kittens, because in such a large territory, if they meet a kitten, it is very probable that it's their own, and so consequently they just adopt them. So urban cats still display behavioral patterns that evolve in the original environment of adaptation. And then we might conclude that free-ranging unowned domestic cats in the urban environment seem to able to exploit new food resources, but are apparently less able to reproduce efficiently. So extreme food opportunism and a little less extreme the behavioral opportunism. However, it is possible that new threats are emerging. If we compare the average age of father, we see that in the rural environment is almost 4 years, and in the urban environment is almost 3 years. So in the rural environment, we found only one cat under 3 years of age that produce kittens, because they have to be competitive enough to conquer and to maintain a territory, and a young male is not able to do that. But in the urban environment, we found 2 10-month-old cats and many 12-month-old cats that produce kittens. So is the lowering of the age of first reproduction a new emerging threat? And finally, the sperm competition. The domestic cats are a suitable candidate for studying testicular size in relation to sperm competition and intraspecific testosterone levels. This aspect has not been exhaustively explored, and I repeat the sentence. As Zook and co-workers pointed out, if behaviors associated with the threat function already exist, a new variant finds a ready foothold and selection can act accordingly. So we really don't know which is the direction that has taken the evolution of the behavior in the urban environment. And then I would like to thank all the contributors who helped us collect and organize the data presented, and also I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Eugenia, for such a great talk. Very nice. I think we learned a lot about cats. Didn't know that much, really. So now we are open to questions. Remember to just type in your question mark on the chat to everyone. So far, we don't have any. And then Eduardo and Logan will keep an eye on the YouTube. I'll organize here my... Okay. Sorry, you have a question.
Hello, thank you for your nice talk about cats. I can imagine that some cities have some program to keep down the population of these free roaming cats in the city, and so there might be programs of sterilization or something like that. And if that is the case, I then wonder how that plays into this entire kind of the strategies of these cats, whether they are sterilized or not, and both males and females.
So, yes, in Rome, especially, they are very efficient. I mean, in Italy there is the law that came out in 1991 that says that the cats, the colony cats, have to be sterilized, neutered, and it is for free. I mean, of course, the unowned. And so, yes, when they have begun to apply the law, I lost one of my favorite important field where to work and do the research. But I mean, yes, your question is how I
how then, if like these neutered cats within the population, how that then affects the behavior, the reproductive strategies with these cats within the population?
Okay, so we did a study, and the study was to study the entire colony before the neutering, and after they were all neutered, and we saw that the cats remained territorial in the same territory, and they were aggressive towards intruders. And this was a study important to say to people that manage the urban cats, I mean the government, that it's important to neuter them and not to move them from the place, because in that way they occupy the space, and the space is not free for other cats, because there is quite a high, still now, quite a high level of abandoned cats, because people maybe don't neuter the cats at home and they just leave the kittens. So yes, in Rome, I have to do a distinction between big cities, north and south in Italy, because in the big cities, in Milan and in Rome, for example, the veterinary public services are very active and efficient, and the cat colonies are, most of them are neutered. But in the south, it's less true, and then there are still mixed colonies, apart from the abandoned cats that in Rome, for example, are trapped and neutered all the time. So, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sari. We have a question from Emmy.
Hi, thanks for a very, very interesting talk. You talked a lot about the ancestral reproductive behavior of cats and how it's reflected in modern days behaviors in urban and rural populations. I just wanted to try to get an idea of the time frame, because especially thinking of cats in Rome, you might naively think that this is behavior which is maybe even or a situation which is thousands of years old already. I was just wondering, what's your idea there? How modern is this modern selection regime you described on the reproductive behavior?
How modern, in terms of age? Well,
in terms of time, given that, for example, Rome probably already had maybe relatively urban environment with high cat densities, perhaps already a couple of thousand years ago, 2,500 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, well, Rome is surely one of the most famous city of the cat. I mean, it's centuries that surely there is the habit to give the food to the cats, but it's probably an exception. In the Roman time, probably cats were more private. I don't know, because in Roman times, we know that historically, they were not adored like in Egypt, and then but they were present. What we don't know is if there were already the colonies. I mean, What makes the difference in the reproductive strategy is the density. So I don't know, but I don't think that in the ancient Rome there was such a high density. And anyway, Rome is an exception. Think of the different urban realities that, of course, most of the cats were attached to human houses, probably. I mean, even in the urban environment, not only in the rural, but even in the urban environment, in small cities, probably there were not such colonies with the high density like that creates the opportunity for not competitive males to mate successfully with a female.
Great, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Amy. So I just want to make a little note, please. Everyone, remember to introduce yourself and probably say a little bit about what you do and your affiliation. So we create this community and strengthen it. Amy, if you want to sort of introduce yourself so everyone knows.
Yeah, excuse me, I completely forgot. I'm
no
Emmy.
worries.
I'm from south of Munich, Seewiesen, and I work on birds and specifically mating systems and extra paternity. So multiple paternity is hugely interesting to me.
Thank you, Emmy. Great. Next question, Maren.
Hello, I'm Maren. I'm at the University of Derby. I've studied primates a lot, but I have a strong interest in cats, and I have had a PhD student who studied the impact of predation by domestic pet cats, so not completely free-ranging cats on the wildlife in the UK. And well, I have lots of questions, but the first one relates to what Zari asked. When you say that now there's quite a lot of neutering programs going on, do you think that this could, at least in the long run, change actually the selection? Because if you do trap neutering programs, then you're likely to catch a certain subset of the cats, so that, for example, the shyer ones or the more aggressive ones or whatever, and this might be different between males and females again, might be selected because the ones that go into the traps are neutered and the ones that don't go into the traps are not neutered and therefore can reproduce. Do you think that will affect the mating strategies?
Well, yes, but Rome is again a particular place because the veterinary services are very efficient, and then at least within the round street, I don't know how to say, the raccordo anulare, I mean the real city of Rome. And then there is a big contribution from the association of the volunteers, and they are very good at trapping the cats. And then in Rome, it's difficult that even a shy cat is not neutered, but definitely it will influence the selection in other reality, in other situations, in other places, because of course this is what I know from the literature, unfortunately, is happening, is occurring in Australia, where people try to, I'm speaking of feral cats or free-ranging cats, but they are trying to catch all the cats, and there are some that are very shy that they never succeeded, and then they are trying and thinking of horrible things like keeping a female in estrus artificially for 20 days, all 20 days, so all elusive cats, male cats, will arrive sooner or later. They can try to trap or kill them, and so on. So yes, I think that in some places it will influence the natural selection. Yes.
Thank you. Is there another question? Okay, then I come
But
back.
you can go ahead. It's me.
Yeah.
You can go ahead.
Okay. The other question was, different countries are very different in how, and you mentioned that even within Italy, there's a big difference between Rome and other areas. And coming from Germany and living in the UK, it's again very different. There are very few cat colonies in the same sense as there is in Southern Europe. Most cats are pet cats, and there are probably some semi-feral cats or completely free-ranging cats in rural areas, but there are no real cat colonies. So do you think that the mating system in urban cats, if it exists at all, because there are so few unneutered, there's also much fewer unneutered cats probably at least in the UK and Germany. So how does this affect how variable the cats are and how they behave, those that are not neutered anyway?
I think that well, let me know if you say that the cat, think of England with the system of private houses with some cat that goes out and they are neighbors. Probably sometimes, this is a question that I ask you. Do they form a group? Do they know each other? Do they share something? Because if they do, probably their density is not comparable to that of the urban cats that we saw in Rome. But anyway, it influences the behavior because probably the female that are not selected to do a mate choice will mate with all of them, but they are neutered probably.
That's the thing. Most of the cats are neutered. The densities are high if you look at the area, but the overlap of territories is probably lower. And they do know, so what I can say from the cat cameras that I have for a few cats, and I haven't analyzed them all, but they do know quite a lot of the neighboring cats, and there's definitely also interactions between males, even if they are neutered. There's definitely interaction at night between cats that are not directly neighbors. So where I saw new cats that I didn't know were around, for example. But it's
so I think that one of the results that we saw in the study where we neutered all the colony is that definitely their affiliative behavior increases. Not so much from males, but it appears in males and it increases in females. So probably if they know each other and they are neutered, probably they form a sort of interchanging group. And then, but on the evolution of the behavior, there is not a reproduction. So there is not, probably. Was this the question?
I'm not quite sure what my question was. I think the question is more about there are a few non-neutered cats still around. So because people still get kittens and you still get kittens from, yeah. So there's still some unneutered cats. So do you expect, given that the unneutered cats are probably much more not as dense, because the majority of the cats will be neutered, and then you have the few unneutered ones. So probably there is more possibility for an unneutered male to monopolize again. Do you think that this will happen?
Yes, absolutely. There is less competition. So it's more like a more ancient situation. It's not that there are 10 males ready to exploit the situation while two competitive are fighting. So yes, it's more.
I mean, that there might still be fighting, and there might still be things going on. But for example, there can be a neutered tomcat
Yes.
fighting with an unneutered one. But I
They
fully agree.
remain territorial, so they can fight, but of course they don't know why. So I mean, probably anyway, surely there are the unneutered that are favored, and then after that, after they fight, at the end there are few that mates. So yes.
Okay, thank you, Maren. I will skip mine and then I'll invite Suleima to ask a question and then I'll go.
Hi, this is Suleima Tang Martinez. I'm at the University of Missouri in St. Louis, but I'm retired. Thank you, Eugenia, for a really interesting talk about cats. And I guess I have several related questions. First of all, do you think there could be any less obvious ways in which females could be choosing or selecting which males actually fertilize their eggs? And I'm thinking of the fact that you talked about I think you called them true copulations versus, not true copulations, with the true copulations involving ejaculation and the other ones not. And so I'm wondering if there's any way that a female might be able to influence when she is mounted by a male, whether or not ejaculation occurs. And then along with that, whether there's any evidence of post-copulatory cryptic female choice, and are there any order effects so that, like first male or last male, whether that makes a difference, or whether the sperm seem to be randomly used in terms of fertilizing the eggs.
Thank you for the questions that are really interesting and many of them to be explored. So I have to be anecdotal for a moment because I noticed that when there was such a confusion, there was the population, the group of where GE, the black one, was the alpha male that consisted of 40 males and 40 females, adult. Then there was really a great confusion when a female was in estrus. And I have to say that it was impossible to put it in number because it was not a regular behavior, but we noticed that there was some female that just refused some male. So I don't know because I have not the numbers, but it seems that there is some preference. But I don't know if it makes sense to speak of preference when we saw this female that was anyway copulating with 7 males.
Yeah.
I mean, one after the other, or in 5 days, there is a lot of time. And think that anyway, we were not present for many hours of the day, for example, the night. So my answer is, well, you see, we did a study on dogs, on free-ranging dogs, where we saw that the young females preferred the young males because they were less frightened. Because the high-ranking dogs are very aggressive, and the young females were very frightened. And so the primiparous preferred the young males. And maybe there can be something similar in female cats. Because female cats are really, can I say, maltreated? Because they are courted by so many males altogether, they are really, and they sometimes are wounded on the neck. So maybe there is some choice. And the second question, I would have liked to do a study on the order effect, but this is possible only in laboratory situation because 24 hours a day, you cannot control the order of males. And in any case, when you have 3, 4, 5 males, even though you have the opportunity to see the genetic, the genotype of the kittens, you can't know the results. So as far as I know, there are not studies on the order effect.
Yeah.
Whereas I did on wolves when I was in the United States, I did on wolves. And there was some advantage of the first or the second, but we did with 2 in the lab.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I was also struck by the fact that, as you describe it, you have many, many males who are pursuing these females and mating with the females, and yet most of the females, when you showed the table that shows the females and how many offspring they had with each male, most females only produce offspring with 2 males, and presumably they mated with many more than just those 2 males. And I found that really interesting. On the other hand, on another table, you showed one female that had, I think it was just one, maybe there's more, that had young with 5 different males. And so you get
Yes.
a whole range of, yeah.
Yes.
So I found those very interesting. Which means I guess that the vast majority of males that are mating, typically, despite having mating with very large numbers of males, only a few of those males end up fertilizing the eggs.
yes, but think that the one that had 5 different fathers was in France. It was another study
Okay.
with a group that was more numerous. I mean, there were more individuals. The one I showed the results of the multiple paternity had, well, actually, it's true, few males, 6 in the graph, reproduced.
Yeah.
But there were many males who, for example, the orange and white, we saw him copulating with 2 months, but he didn't sire any kid.
Yeah.
So I think that the sperm competition is really the point.
Yeah. And possibly cryptic female choice, which I see as the flip side of sperm competition. Yeah. Thank you. It's very, very interesting.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't see another question mark, so we'll go with my question. And it's related to Suleisma's question about like the fact that you have one female with leaders fathered by 5 different fathers, and then a single one, but also the difference in between the rural sort of mating behavior and the urban one. So I'm not quite sure if it's the female actually choosing who to mate with, because in your photo, also you mentioned like you have this male guarding the female. So is it actually just the male just decides who he's going to mate with in the rural environment, and then he does this guarding behavior, and the female cannot mate with anyone else? Whereas in the rural environment, in the urban environment, you don't have this probably ability to guard the female. And I'm wondering if that's also a consequence of probably a more homogeneous body size of the males that basically leads to a more similar competitive ability of the males. And then the female just gave up and just mate with everyone who wants to mate with her.
Well, in the rural environment, just trying to understand really what you mean. In the rural environment, the fact that we found some litter, 22% of litters with more than one father, can mean two things. Or that one male, think of hectares, of course. So maybe then it's possible that one male introduce an intruder succeeding in copulating with the female, while the resident male was, I don't know, hunting or whatever. Or that the female just went out the male territory and went to the other male territory, a neighboring male, maybe. So can we speak of mate choice? I don't know. Maybe she was just hunting and just went. I mean, it is possible to hypothesize that it's a female choice, but we don't know actually. And the second thing was that I never saw some male behavior that could be defined as guarding the female. After.
Okay, so the sort of cartoon that you have in the presentation, it's more like a cartoonish representation of what's going on, because there was the male is standing in front of the female in the cartoon, sort of in the guarding behavior type of.
Yes, this was in the rural
environment. Yes.
Yes, in the rural environment, probably it's just 22% because the male is patrolling the territory and fighting against any single male that is trying to enter, attracted by the odors by the smell of the female in estrus. But think also that because of the conflict among sexes, between sexes, it's clear that females can have advantage to have the kittens sired by more than one male, or to so there is also this one that anyway the resident male in the rural environment has to patrol the territory and fight. He has to fight against the intruder, and sometimes probably because of the combination of the female behavior, it doesn't succeed. But this is in the rural environment. In the urban environment, it's impossible to do the guard behavior of the female after and also because the eggs of the female just go down in the days, during the days. So even if a male he has not been selected to do the guarding behavior of the female because he should, in the urban environment, he should do for 5 days. It's impossible. Because she can have 2 eggs fertilized by the first male, and after that, after 2 days from another male, because the other eggs were not ready still already. I don't know if I was clear.
Yes. But then all the males basically pursue the female kind of at the same time. So there's a still male competition of who approaches her first. And is that related to, and I can't remember if you mentioned that in the talk, but is the order related to the rank?
No.
Or no? And is the dominance rank related to the body size of the cats?
Yes, in that population, yes. In another one, it was not. This is another point, very interesting point. The black male GE that I show sometimes, he was quite slim, but all the cats really were frightened by him. Probably personality, I don't know. It was time in which even personality didn't make any sense, or temperament, but he was there when he arrived. That's why he had the highest number of copulation, because really the other cats were a little frightened, and we don't know about the kittens. It was not time we had the possibility. So, but anyway, the fact that the 2 male But the 6 kilos and 5.5 kilos actually shared a high number of kittens, and they were the biggest.
Mhm.
Probably in the rural environment, it would have been with the highest reproductive success.
Interesting. Thank you, Eugenia. Maren, you have another question?
Another 2 questions. One is more from the male's perspective and one is more from the female's perspective. So do you have any data on the lifetime reproductive success of the males? So because males obviously get more experienced with age. And so if you have just a snapshot of 1 year, Braveheart might be the dominant male in 1 year, but somebody who was younger might replace him. And so lifetime, they might be more balanced. Did you look at that?
Yes. So in the cities, in the city, I have to speak of Rome. The lifetime expectation for an adult male is more or less 5-6 years. I can answer you about this in the rural environment. I think that in the rural environment, the males are really more stressed because of the having and maintaining a territory. We published a very funny paper on a case in 1992 where there was the lucky situation in which there was a dominant white cat. He was white because he had the gene dominant white that manifests always when it's transmitted and it is dominant. And then in the 1992, there was this mature, very competitive male, and in a large rural environment, very big area, 95% of the kittens born that year were white. So this was really incredible, but it was, and there were not males around. I mean, people noticed that the males are really decreased. But the year after, the cat was seen and not seen. He was quite, he seemed ill. He was still young. And the year after, he disappeared. So probably he had such a stressful year that after that he died. And then in the urban environment, they are less stressed. I mean, it's one of the costs of maintaining a big territory and monopolizing the female is, in the rural environment, is high. So the cost is high. But in the urban environment is lower, because it's true that they have a lower reproductive success, but the tolerance among males, this is a very interesting point that makes me think of Zook paper, because the tolerance is a plastic behavior. The only one I see that to maintain, to allow the existence of the group, the social group, males have to be more tolerant among them. And actually, this is what we see. After that, the cost is that the male reproductive variability is the reproductive success is distributed among the males. Not among all males, but among some males. So there is not one who reproduces. So I don't know if I answered to your question, but there are a lot of things that still have to be studied.
And the other question was again what Suleima also talked about, and also Adriana, whether the females have some kind of, or could have some kind of influence. Cats can have I mean, you said the average dimorphism is 20%, but I've known cats, female cats that are very big, and I've known male cats that are very small. My own Tom is double the size. He's 8 kilo and she is less than 4 kilo. But she moved in, so she decided that she wants to live in my house. So she came on her own. And from the videos, I've seen that sometimes females and males can have quite, and these are all neutered. So it's a very different situation, but there might be still some underlying things. That females based on their own size might also employ different strategies, so that a big female cat could perhaps exert more choice by fighting off smaller males if she wants to. Or a small cat might even choose some strategies like fusas do in Madagascar by climbing somewhere where the male can't follow if they are too big. So do you think something like that could happen?
It can happen. It can happen. We don't know. We had not very big females in terms of size, but we had very experienced females. So maybe it happens, yes. But the problem is, even if it is, paradoxically, I lost my, field of studies because all cats in Rome are neutered. And I don't complain, but of course it's like that. I mean, there are a lot of questions still open in this situation, because in the Kerguelen, it's very interesting, but it's very difficult to study the cats there. And then they are the opposite, really the opposite. And yeah. One thing that, sorry, I forgot to say that it's a very interesting thing, that another cost of dominance is the fact that the 5 cats that I showed you in the graph, Braveheart, Vagabond, etc., were FIV positive, where they had the feline immunodeficiency virus, because, of course, they fought probably also with the other males, neighboring males. And then because the contact is between saliva and blood, one of the costs of fighting a lot is the FIV. And no females in that group had FIV. So it was really depending on fights among males. And it is one of the costs, because of course, they reproduce for years before dying. So it is not counter-selected.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Maren. I will ask a question myself. You mentioned the tolerance, and I was wondering about how social groups are formed in urban environments. I mean, the ancestral state, it's solitary, most likely. And then we have these colonies in the urban environments. And I'm wondering if they are colonies that are formed based on spatial tolerance. So it's just a matter of like, they are together in a certain space, or they actually form like proper social bonds within these colonies. And if they do you have data on social interactions within individuals in the colonies?
Yes, we have all kind of studies on interactions. I mean, affiliative behavior, the fact, for example, that I said that the adult males tolerate kittens until they are 1 year old. For example, they give priority of access to food. And also the affiliative behavior occur among males, among females, among adult females and adult males, but not among males. Among males, there is only tolerance. You would never see 2 adult males sleeping together in contact, or do the the nose-nose contact with the tail up, that is typical of the greeting among adult males and adult females and among adult females. So there is really a separation in roles. Even the first study I did was on the utilization of the space. There was one place where there were just adult females and only few males high rank were tolerated. There was a area where there were only adult males. And there was an area where all the females sooner or later took their kittens to lactate or sort of nursery. So yes, what else? There is the individual recognition because based on olfactory cues, because they reacted, the member of a group reacted in a different way towards sprayed urine from a strange male, or between strange urine from a sprayed urine from a strange male and the urine released, not sprayed, I mean just, but from a strange male. You know, when they urinate, the male can do it in two ways. One is spraying, that is for marking the territory. And the other one is just like any cat with, I don't know in English, accovacciato, with the position that is on the floor.
Squatting.
Squatting.
I think it's a squatting, yeah.
Thank you. So squatting and spraying. So the members of the group recognized the difference between reacting in a different way from the squatting urine and sprayed urine from a strange male, but also from sprayed urine from a strange male and sprayed urine from a male of the group. So there is an individual olfactory recognition. Yes, I think they are structured group. Nothing to do with dogs, but they are structured groups.
That's pretty cool. That's great. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So I think we can stop the live stream and then we can stay here and chat a little bit if you want to do it in a more relaxed setup. So Eugenia, I thank you again for accepting the invitation and giving us such a great talk and holding up for this awesome discussion, and everyone else for attending the seminar today. And of course, I invite you to come again next week for Matthew Seal's talk on social networks and diseases. So we'll stop now. Thank you.